Welcome to Power and Perspective, where we reframe conversations with empathy and humor. I am April, and this is Aaron.
Love the hype.
Thank you. I had to do it different. I didn't know how, I knew I had to do something different, but, that's what I chose in the moment.
You're being inspired by the small world snake there behind your head?
Yes! Isn't it so fun? If you do not think my background is so fun, then I think you need your smiley gene checked.
Smiley gene?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, God, I'm going to have to do some research on that. This is not something I'm familiar with.
There's peach schnapps in my hot water, so...
What does that even mean? Do you really...
It affects your smiley gene.
Like a broke-ass hot toddy? Is that what's going on right now?
I don't know. Yeah, I just looked whatever was in there.
At least make it tea.
Oh, no. It's because I take my coffee all day, right? So my coffee starts, and then as I drink it down, I just put more hot water, more hot water, more hot water, more hot water. So there's like this much, and it's not real coffee, but that's irrelevant. It's like this much of the coffee-ish drink, and then I put some peach schnapps and then hot water.
That's a very complicated process that you go through on the daily. For your stimulants, and then
just keep adding hot water. It's not real coffee. It's mud water. I told you.
Oh yes, yeah.
I'm in a cult.
Yeah, she drinks mushrooms now. That's where we are.
Mud water cult.
Yeah.
They're not the good part of the mushroom.
It's invisible. It's invisible coffee. All coffee is invisible.
It makes me invisible.
You just have a perception problem there, Jacob. So, go ahead. What?
I forgot to look at I was like, why are you saying that? I forgot to look at my comments. He means because you can't see it.
Oh,
that's why
yeah,
he said
yeah. And your official Keurig mug there.
Oh, yeah. Keurig. The coffee maker of champions.
Considering you're not drinking coffee, that's there's layers
Keurig
here
makes
that not
many
even I
things.
can process.
You can make tea, hot chocolate. Keurig does many things. Feel free to
but
send us some royalties.
Do you get your mud water in pods?
No, I just use it to make hot water. My Keurig. I just use it for the hot water.
It's not. By the way, it's not a company you should support since their pods are non-recyclable. At least not traditionally recyclable.
Their pods aren't. Yeah. Correct.
And they support an industry of pods that are not recyclable.
Many.
That's neither here nor there.
Yes, we got so off topic.
So today is going to be interesting.
Thank you. Steven's bringing us back. Does Keurig make an AR? Thank you, Steven.
So this episode that, like, when we were talking about it and the conversation I've been having over the past couple of weeks as a result of the news, I've been having a lot of conversations about gun violence and gun control and the nature of things in our wonderful country, and I firmly stand in a position where I'm open to hearing reasonable arguments to sway me, because I have no specific stance on the topic as a whole. I have lots of fundamental and principled positions on the effects of potential action, but I don't have, like, I'm not sitting here saying that I need to have a gun.
A gun.
Right.
Yeah. Unfortunately, you're not going to like what I'm about to say.
Go ahead.
I agree with you.
Well, you don't. Let's be clear, right? You do not own a firearm.
Oh, I do not own a firearm.
Yeah.
Mostly because those statistics about the people who have firearms and they just end up like shooting themselves, or like something bad happens, like it's not used in the right way, or they break into your house, you're like, where the fuck did I put that gun? Like, that would be me. Like, it wouldn't serve a good purpose.
Fair enough. So it's not a I don't want a gun in my home sort of position.
And I think the military instilled in me almost a fear of firearms, because they were so hardcore and regimented when we went, because they had to be to keep everyone safe, when we went to the range and stuff like that. So I think I'm a little afraid of them. I would check to make sure my weapon was empty, like, obsessively. Like, oh, it's empty, right? Okay, yeah.
Well, that's proper.
Is it really empty? Yeah.
Having that kind of neuroses is appropriate
for a firearm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, technically, for a lot of things directly related to how likely it is to hurt you or someone else.
Yeah.
Which is why I don't do regular maintenance on my washer, but my dryer gets regular maintenance, because it will kill you.
Yeah, it will kill you.
Clothes dryers kill people. Yeah.
We actually know somebody whose dryer just caught on fire.
Oh.
I don't think he's a fan. I don't think he's a fan of the show anymore.
I was speculating, but that's fun to know.
He's probably not watching.
But
yes.
Complicated.
There were pictures. It was interesting.
So what I wanted to do was I wanted to kind of explore the topic, and
by creating a framework, like-ish, right?
Well, I mean, it will happen as a result of exploring the topic.
Because I planned to write it down.
Oh, you can do that. Yeah. I mean,
step 1.
Cut a hole in the box. Because my problem is that I have issues with every argument that's brought to me on the topic, as far as fixing the problem. And let's be clear, for me, from what I see, that we're not actually focused on the problem being violence.
Yeah, the problem being, why the F are people shooting each other?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
like,
I find
it would be the same. Why are people punching each other? Like, why are people harming other people?
Yeah.
Hurt, and I will say it again, this definitely should be on a shirt, but hurt people hurt people.
Well, and mental health, I think, has been a broad topic that's kind of spanned throughout a lot of the things that we've discussed, and is definitely an important component to this. That I think that we as Americans don't take necessarily as seriously as. Actually, I don't know about other countries, to be completely honest.
I was as you were saying that.
I was going to make a broad, sweeping generalization, and then.
I know. And then you thought of Japan, and you're like, "Oh shit, I'm wrong."
Well, I just assumed that we're generally the worst at caring for our populace.
Everything.
Yeah, the way that we're built.
But
it's like we discussed that we're one of the least, like, culturally unified states in the world. So that there's a lot to unpack almost no matter what we're talking about, because you have people coming from different circumstances and different environments,
Yeah.
and the people and largely, I would say, historically at least, people don't come to this country because everything's great where they are.
Yeah. True. So
So
we're
there may be
getting
a lot of mental health issues. Like, we may have a larger percentage of mental health issues
because
than
of
other countries because of that. But
yeah,
that's
agreed.
all wild speculation. Just to
Yeah.
put that
That's what we
put
do
that on the
here.
lever.
We should change the name to Wild
Yes,
Speculation.
wild speculation. The podcast. No, we'd have a lot more fun.
I was just gonna say that sounds so fun. Power perspective colon wild speculation. Does that
Well,
not work?
well, and I guess like let's
Other
just and these kind of conversations, when you have something that's so nuanced and complicated like this, I don't think wild speculation is bad, because it's the creativity, it's that outside the box thinking that leads
Yes.
to better solutions, because you have to.
Agreed.
You're like, oh, well, maybe that's not right, maybe I'll look into it.
Okay, so I'm gonna take the stance of a hardcore gun person, right? Like a believer in guns should be in people's hands. Only because I think a lot of the argument is valid, right? So the first thing I would do isn't labeling people as having mental disorders offensive. No, I think it's a like if I were to label them, it might be offensive. Like if I say, Aaron, dude, you got a mental disorder. That might be
Which I do.
offensive.
It's also fair though. So I mean,
But if I was a doctor or even a no, I'd probably bring my kid to a doctor. I was going to say, or a parent. Parents, teachers, those kind of roles might see the signs. Like a mental disorder is a real thing.
and it's more about the resources available and the willingness to accept something personally.
Yeah, and I think that's the problem is saying it's offensive. I know you're probably just trying to start shit, but I'm going to take it as real. That's what I do, Steven.
Called out.
I think that it's making it something that's offensive is part of the problem because it's a real thing. It's not like calling you a name or like accusing you of having a mental disorder is funny. You know what I mean? It shouldn't be a derogatory term or something you throw around flippantly
Yeah.
because it's not funny. So I'm going to take a position of I love guns.
Which will be an interesting. I mean, I think that'll be difficult when we get down to the nitty gritty for you.
No, I'm just in the beginning. I
Okay. I was gonna say, like, if I ask you to argue against the NFA, we might run into.
I'll try. I will do my
Problems.
best. I did a master debate in 5th grade on the Loch Ness Monster, so I'm just saying. I'm just saying I can be
This-
phenomenal at this.
This
But the
burns
first
us.
thing that I would do if I was interested in widening my perspective, the first thing I would do is research the other side because I probably watch news that supports gun ownership. I hang around people who also support gun ownership. Like, I probably don't know or understand or get why people are so against owning guns, right?
Well, I think before we get right to that point, I think there's an important step that has to happen before that.
Okay, what is that?
And you have to separate yourself from your emotional response to the subject.
You have to prepare to research
Yeah.
mentally. Okay.
Because you
I
have to
I
be
accept that.
because it's very difficult to find any kind of and you're probably not going to find unbiased literature, right?
Mhm.
And this is the importance of developing like a framework of principles when you talk about politics and stuff like that. Is so you have your belief system that you can objectively analyze solutions from,
Yeah.
right?
And but see, like when you were talking before the call, again, a reason why we should really record our before and after calls. But like you made some good points that I had never thought of. So that's kind of what you're looking for is you're looking for information that you haven't thought of, whether it's your side or the other side. What is something that you haven't considered? So don't just look for something that's repetitive. Like you're going to look on social media or those clickbaity things. like our stuff. And you're going to see the same information. So that's not what you want to look for. You don't want to look for things that reiterate either side. You want to look for things you haven't thought of before.
Well, and there's and you know what, this leads us to a good place to start as far as arguments that are made, because I think it's something that largely people don't think about. And let's go to the NFA. You're probably not familiar with the NFA. It's the National Firearms Act of 1934. And what it did is it put
Right, it's all right here.
it put kind of arbitrary restrictions on types of firearms you could own.
Oh, that goes along with what Katie's saying right now.
But what it did is you could still get those firearms. They just imposed a $200 tax stamp.
Oh,
And
so
this
they're
is
just
still in
charging
effect,
you.
and this is still for short-barreled rifles. This is in effect, and we can talk about the inefficacy of like what short-barreled rifles are, and it all leads to the arbitrary enforcement by ATF stuff. But that's irrelevant. So if you put a barrier to entry like that, and you say the barrier to entry to own this weapon is $200, which, for context sake, this was in 1934. If it was not in,
It's a lot of money.
If it was not in flat dollar amounts in the language, at this point it would be up to $3,925.
Wow. Plus the cost of the weapon, obviously.
Yeah, which means who's gonna own those? Who's gonna own those guns? It's going to be
Rich people.
yeah, because I certainly could not afford a $4,000 fee on top of
Well,
everything
I
else.
would choose not to spend my money that way.
Oh, I mean, I guess that's
a
way to put it too.
I like to be careful on how I use money because I'm working on my money mindset.
That's a real rich dad poor dad thing that you got going on there.
Yeah.
But the point being is that it discriminates against the poor immediately.
Yeah. Which comes up a lot in our conversations.
Yeah.
The discrimination of the poor.
Yeah, the war on poverty, which is an episode we strangely haven't done yet.
It's because we're building up to it. We like to leave little breadcrumbs to the big stuff.
till we get to the real ranty shit.
Yeah.
Because that one's going to be interesting. But looking at fee-based solutions to this whole problem, right? If you look at creating financial barriers to entry, theoretically, if the argument is that firearms are needed for home defense, those people who need them are likely in inner city, more impoverished areas, and suddenly we're making it the most difficult for them to get those firearms.
Particular firearm. But that's a particular
No,
type
I mean
of firearm.
I'm just talking about fee-based solutions to the problem.
If you put
yeah,
got it.
using the NFA just kind of as an example.
Okay,
as
got
a starting
it.
point.
Well, as a gun supporter, if you're just joining us, I'm playing a role. As a gun supporter, I think many of them grew up in like a place where it's a recreation. Like it's very in the West, farmland, hunting, like, you know what I mean? Like stories about they ride around in their pickup like to high school, and they're like still even today got their weapon, rifle, whatever it is, hanging on. As a gun proponent, clearly I know nothing about guns. But it's a culture, I would say.
Well, and I think that's also Western. I think there's a lot of Western bias probably there too. There's probably a bias of that sort no matter where.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? But we definitely, I would say that our experience has definitely been Western bias, where everybody that we know that has owned guns, it's been for recreation.
Yeah, either hunting or just going to the desert to shoot, which I don't see. I mean, I've done it, but I don't see a huge appeal. Like, I don't get it. Well, as a gun owner, I do it all the time, but.
Well, I mean, in Las Vegas, we have
gun rack. Thank you, Jacob.
In Las Vegas, we have a lot of land for the size that we are. So we have less consolidation of people in general, and there's a lot different things to consider than when you have hundreds and hundreds of people stacked in high rises and stuff. Yeah, if we're talking about places like New York.
And Katie mentions that she knows a lot of people that just like to fire big, cool firearms and stuff like that. Like they just like to fire weapons. Um, and I think that that's legitimate. I don't know if those are the. I guess those are the same people fighting. I guess I just don't hear a lot of that. I hear a lot of arguments for hunting.
Well, and this will flip things a little bit because my interest in firearms is purely intellectual. I think the development, the historical development of firearms, and the mechanical intricacies of firearms. I find very interesting, and the ways, because there's a lot to deal with. There's some very tight machine tolerances and high pressures you're dealing with. So from an engineering perspective, guns are interesting.
Yes.
And
And what Steven says, I would agree. If I had a weapon, the reason I would have a weapon, not only I as because it's my civic duty, but because I don't know if you know this or not, but if the shit hits the fan, the people with the biggest guns win. Like, and I think that has been so evident, shown to us through the toilet paper debacle. People are taking all the shit and they aren't going to share. There's no love united going on. So, like, if the apocalypse happens, if zombies come, you're going to want to need a weapon to, even if it's not just to go after stuff, but to protect yourself and your family.
yeah,
Is this not a real fear that people have?
no, I think I think it's a common argument. And from the frame that I come from, which is the stance of libertarians as a whole, is that they are the word of the Second Amendment shall not be infringed is repeated ad nauseum on the internet.
Yeah.
And that it's, I mean, that at that point it becomes it's a principled thing, and it's the reason. I mean, there's so much historical crap as far as the U.S. in particular about leaving, and it's probably not specific. I mean, it's not specific to us. It's happened many times before, but it's us fighting, us becoming another country that fought against an oppressor, whether you want to call taxation oppressive. That is getting out of hand already. But most places that have those kinds of uprisings, like if you look at the French Revolution, it's still just France, right?
Yeah.
Like we didn't create a new platform for as a place of our freedom and our values and our ideals. So it's like a different. I don't even know how to explain it because I don't really have that aggressive mindset like that. So if you can explain to me as a staunch gun supporter how our roots and how our nation came to be.
Versus how and why. I know.
What
No,
brings us
Steven
to
is
where we
in my
are.
head, people. I'm going there next, Steven. Dude, I'm telling you, he's in my head. But first, I'll answer Aaron's question. So, the question is, as a gun supporter, like the forming of our country, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we landed and took land. So, and the reason why we were able to overpower the Native Americans is because of guns.
Oh, and we did definitely commit violence. Like there is
Yeah.
the US
Like,
the US's history is rife with violence.
And I think I don't know when they came over from like England if what the guns were like back then in England. I know now in the UK not even police officers have weapons.
Yeah.
But back then, oh, that would be something interesting to look up. Like when did that happen? Because I'm sure they had. No, I'm not sure. I don't know. Like when did this whole non-weapon thing happen in the UK and how did they do it? And they just go take everyone's guns away? Like
I think it was
I'm
I think they
curious.
did it through buybacks. They might not have even been buybacks. It might have been turn-ins.
Like back like in the day when no one would disagree with that.
Possibly. But again,
Interesting.
like we've discussed, it's more culturally unified. I mean, not as much as places like Scandinavia, I'd imagine, as far as cultural unification. There's probably a lot of immigration to the UK.
To the UK, I think
Yeah.
there is. Like Canada, the UK, America, I think would be the three top.
Yeah.
I think. I'm spouting stuff, people. But so Steven says, for those of you who can't see the stuff, when the zombies do come, just raid the houses from the government's gun owners list. And that goes to what I think is step number 3 after you research, is imagine the extreme circumstances of both sides. So with regards to gun control or gun violence is really what we're looking at. Imagine taking all of the weapons away from the people. Then what happens? Then you have a highly armed government agencies, assuming that we don't take it from the police, because I haven't heard that like doing the rounds on social media.
Yeah.
So you have this, all the people that govern us have the weapons, and Steven's probably right, and probably the rich people, because really, let's be honest, the rich people are the government.
I mean, yeah, in our corporatist society, where I don't want to say too many things to get me on
big
too many
business
lists.
runs everything.
Since it keeps getting brought up, I'm trying to put myself on lists. But I mean, it also brings up well, and let's go back. Hold on. Let's take
Okay.
let's kind of take solutions in order here, right? What do you think about the types of guns available to the general population?
So you think that's a better way, now taking gun control out of this? Do you think that, let's say I'm a full staunch gun supporter. Do you think thinking through different scenarios is more effective than looking at the extremes first? Because we're building a frame.
So when you're, I mean, I think that you have to, I think a lot of change here is going to happen through having conversations with people, and you develop your opinions based on those conversations. That you can do research, but there's no, if you have concerns about a piece of research, that they can't respond because it's the internet, or it's an article, because the internet can fundamentally respond. But so you have to have these kind of conversations with people that disagree with you, right? If you
But
want
also,
to
I
find.
But people who just disagree with me. So I'm a staunch gun supporter. You are a staunch all guns need to go, right? I don't feel like we would have, you wouldn't, I don't feel like you would bring up the stuff up that you brought up. You know what I mean? That's not what you would think of. You would think guns are bad, guns kill people. We have the highest, whatever, homicide and blah, 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 schmackety schmack. You would say things like that. I don't see where a mediation would occur in two staunch positions.
No, and that's, I mean, and that's the fundamental problem that we're talking about, is that we've got two people who are in their trenches hucking grenades at each other. Those grenades are in the form of memes on the internet, but principally
memes are like sarcasm. They can be funny, and they can connect you with teenagers, but they're not a way to communicate effectively.
Yeah, and they have their place. I'm not throwing shade. But so I would say, if I were in that position, and this is one of the conversations that I had, was somebody posted about all the shootings that were done, and this is, I'm guessing, to what Katrina was getting at, is that AR-15s are the problem, insinuating that AR-15s are disproportionately a problem because they're a military weapon.
Mm-hmm. And they don't serve any other purpose.
Yeah.
Right?
So,
like, they're not used for hunting. That's all I got.
I mean, those are the arguments, but they're fundamentally bad faith arguments.
Yeah, but because I think that, I don't think, if I recall, that those statistics aren't necessarily correct. Like, it's not that, I think those types of shootings are not sensationalized, but mass shared.
Well, they're
you know what I mean?
disproportionately reported on because of their sensationalism.
Yes, that. Good words there, Aaron. Good words.
Yeah, but the argument itself falls apart. And this is where you have to do your research and be prepared for conversations like this, because if you look at the Ruger Mini 14, which is, none of this is going to mean anything to you, it fires the same rounds as the traditional AR-15, and it has the same capacity magazines. You can get accessories for it. The difference, the most fundamental difference between it from the perspective of somebody who doesn't care, is that it has a wood stock. It doesn't have a pistol grip on it. It's not all black. It doesn't look the
like
same.
a military rifle.
Yeah.
Or a military thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
so, but
if you
people
look
don't know about that weapon, probably. People making this argument probably don't know.
Oh yeah, there's definitely a possibility of that.
Because I would say, like, I think these weapons that are causing these mass shootings, because that's all I see in my social media, like, why do we need them? They're not for hunting. They're not this. Those people, I could say a lot of them probably don't know about that weapon.
Well, and that's just a specific example, just because I'm more familiar with Ruger's catalog than anything else. But there are, I mean, the number of examples are basically endless. Yeah.
Yeah. And it goes back to, and I think we can add this in our framework somewhere, but looking at the root of things.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I don't know where it would go in the framework, so I'm just gonna put it off to the side here.
Well, working backwards is always helpful.
Yeah.
Always working backwards.
Yeah. When we talk about anything, we talk about police violence, when we talk about racism, or I can't think of anything else right now, but anything. We need to look at the root cause. I was just talking about this with someone on social media, but that even misbehavior in school, we need to look at the root cause, because we look academic behavior. That's what we do, our academic results. Like, if you can't do math, for example, we look at, okay, why can't you do math? Did you miss some instruction? Do you have a learning disability? Blah, blah, blah. But if you misbehave, we're just like, detention, suspension.
Yeah, or not the solutions.
Yes. Well, yeah, has been traditionally our solutions.
Yeah.
Which actually could lead into this conversation, is we just don't know how to deal with.
Well, and the problem is that it works to some extent. It doesn't not work.
Yeah.
And it works to some extent, and it for some people it will fix the problem.
Yeah.
Some people it'll exacerbate the problem.
Yeah. So looking at the root cause is important when considering others' perspectives.
Yes. You should have organized this episode, because you're confusing me.
I know, but I just think I don't know where it falls, because you said this is free form. I don't know where it falls in the framework of what you're looking at, but I think it might even be, because we have two people on the staunch sides. I think looking at the root cause might be a starting point. So I can say, why do you think people are committing such acts of violence? Because there we probably have a commonality, right?
Yeah.
So we can start with something on the topic that we probably have in common and kind of build from there. And then talk about solutions.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you definitely have to be focused on. It's like the argument I make when I talk to people about climate change, and they talk about being worried about the earth and all that. Is that it's a disingenuous argument, because what you're worried about is humanity. Because absolute worst case, we cause another ice age, and then the earth is going to be fine.
Yeah, the earth will survive.
Yeah, it's gonna be fine, and then it'll repopulate with new stuff, and that's where we'll be. So you have to make sure that the arguments that you're making, and that's the nature of a good faith argument, is you have to be arguing toward what you're trying to accomplish, and be able to accept counter arguments and have discussions about it, where you don't go in assuming there is a right and a wrong.
Yeah. Oh.
Separate yourself from being right I guess.
Yeah. And wrong. Yeah. I don't. Yes. That is good. I'm writing that down. People, I'm making a framework. This is happening. This is happening. But I was going to say something else. Oh, we need to find something one day that we disagree on so that we can play this out.
Well, now that you're suddenly see when we started this whole idea, you weren't hardcore liberty minded, so it's becoming more and more difficult over time.
Yes, because I'm becoming more open-minded people. Because if you would have asked me, like even 6 months ago, if I thought prostitution should be legal, I would say no, that's very bad for people. If you would have asked me if I thought hard drugs should be legal, it wouldn't even be a question. I would say, of course they should. But now I get it. Because why? Because I have reframed conversations with empathy and humor.
Yeah, and you've been convinced by convincing people who are probably just charismatic charlatans.
Named Aaron.
Oh, I don't want to claim any responsibility for any of that. I just mean in general. But going back to Steven's point about when the zombies coming, just raid the houses from the government's gun owners list. So let's talk about universal registration then, and possibly red flag laws.
So can you tell me what all that means?
So licensing is exactly what it is. To own a firearm,
that's already
it
a thing.
be no, it is not a thing. You would require to be there's records of transactions and there's serialized weapons, but you don't have to register
unless you want to do concealed carry.
Correct. That's a different.
Oh, gotcha.
That's a different thing. Yeah.
Gotcha.
And then red flag laws are it's a new conversation about the government having reasons to believe that someone should not own a firearm.
It's a bad slippery slope. Slippity slide.
We live in a time, and we've seen it a lot through the pandemic, is that people fucking turn on each other.
Oh yeah.
Turn on each other quick. There was a story I was reading in Canada, or from Canada. I was not physically in Canada reading. That there was a woman who was taking her kids to like her mother's house so she could go to work, and because they were mixing households, like the neighbors were calling the police on them.
Oh yeah, I heard about this.
And it turned into a whole big thing where the police were showing up at this woman's house because she was dropping her kids off at her mother's house so she could go to work, when it's like, what are we doing?
Yeah. And
like,
I
who
think
wins in that situation?
This will come up too when we talk about CPS next week.
Yeah.
On we trust the government with deciding
anything
things, black and white things. You know what I mean? With that affect lives extremely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So what was the point? I think that's a terrible idea.
Well, yeah, and the licensing thing, and this is the argument. This is always my argument when people bring up licensing, is if there's no fee involved, like aside from my distrust of government and the fact that there will be a list and everything else, if there's any kind of fee involved, immediately you're going back to arguably the people who need them most for self-protection may no longer have access to them.
And we'll then probably get them illegally anyway.
Yeah, which becomes a whole nother problem, because banning if you ban guns outright, you will have criminals in 31% of U.S. households.
Yeah, and that was a good point that you made. So it all of a sudden makes things. It kind of reminds me of the drug thing, like you just have a lot of people go to prison, like back when I wish I could remember things, guys. Like the war on drugs was really a war on poverty, like the war on it was a racial war. You know what I mean?
I mean, it was a war on people. It was a war on people.
Yeah. and that people are just going to end up in jail. And what do? Just collect those like this? None of this makes sense. Let's say just to ban guns. Or people addicted. I mean, I wouldn't say it's like a true addiction like cocaine. Is that what you're trying to say? But I could see it being like people are addicted to comic strips.
I mean, you do get
comics.
you do get that the
Adrenaline rush.
chemical, the chemical highs from shooting them, not necessarily owning them, I wouldn't imagine.
No, but also like shopping can be an addiction.
Yeah. I mean, in that same
Yeah,
way.
like
Yeah, where it's not.
only because I felt that like when you said you can get that high, I was like, ooh, like when you get a really good deal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
shopping for you is a lot different. For you it's buying a bag of things at Goodwill as opposed to like buying a purse. Uh
Yeah, but you should see that I got this shirt at Goodwill. I got the pants I have on at Goodwill as well. I'm just saying, and Goodwill Clearance Center people, if you have not gone there, it is like a freaking treasure hunt. It is fun. We got 2 pair American Eagle jeans, Hollister pants. Like
anyway.
I'm just saying.
But
And also,
and the bringing the point back is that these are arguments that are being made, right? Like these are solutions that are proposed, and those are specifically the issues I take with those potential solutions. Not that I don't want to find a solution. Yeah, is that it's the path to hell was paved with good intentions thing. Just like the war on drugs, theoretically.
Yeah.
I don't know if we can, how much we can attribute to good intentions, but I would say from the
at face value.
yeah, from the position of the general populace, war on drugs at the time was good intentions, right? Whereas what we see is mass incarceration and everything else that ended up being involved, more
which would
violence
happen again, like you said.
Yeah. Well, and we saw we talked
again.
about what happens with prohibition in general, is that we saw the U.S. government poisoning their constituency through industrial alcohols intentionally.
Yeah.
As a disincentive to drink, or to use industrial alcohols to make drinkables. But yeah, so I mean, it's.
And then people, you mentioned something before the show too, and then so many people end up in jail, and then kids are growing up without parents. It causes family trauma. Like, there's a lot of repercussions to outright banning.
And it could. And this is where it gets like fuzzy and shit. Is that at that point it could create more crime, and if we're talking about a banning of guns, the argument is that then only criminals will have guns, just like with prohibition, only criminals then drank alcohol. You created a lot more criminals just with that, but aside from that, the widespreadness of this because of how attached to their guns Americans are as a whole, that there will be a lot of consequences to that. And is it worth it?
I think there would be an uprising, actually.
Oh yeah,
I think it would be.
I think it could get bad. Yeah,
I think it would get bad, knowing how much people, especially because I really feel like in some areas of the country, it is part of their culture. It's what they do. It's, you know what I mean? They teach their kids to shoot at a young age. Like it's part of them. So like, I would love to hear from someone that is a like hardcore ban all guns, nobody needs them, what they think about that. Can they even put themselves in those shoes or feel that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I wonder if they can feel how ingrained, and it's not even, but it's probably like you said, because I grew up in the West, and it's not a part of me, but it's around me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's probably why I can empathize more than maybe someone who grew up
in
York?
The Northeast.
I don't know.
In the city.
Yeah.
Probably in larger cities in the Northeast, or maybe in
Do
California.
they hunt back there?
People do, yeah.
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 So still it could be. And we're not talking about just like I was gonna say recreational hunting, but of course all hunting is recreational hunting. But like this
Well,
is part
for
of their
some people it's
lives.
not. For some people it is feeding themselves. I mean, that's
Yeah.
a real
And I
thing.
think a lot of people eat what they shoot.
Yeah, I would hope so.
Yeah. Yeah. And some people have land, their own land that they hunt on,
Yeah, and
I think.
yeah, I mean it is true. Yeah, and they kill pests and stuff as well
It's
with
like
their
that's
tools,
true.
like
Little squirrels.
coyotes. Coyotes
Oh,
being from
now
the
I think
west
we should ban all weapons
because
now.
coyotes are being
I
shot.
think they shoot. No, because I think they might shoot
Oh,
squirrels.
okay. I'm glad you went to squirrels and not coyotes because I was going to give you some real bad news.
Because they're because I have a judgment of animals in my head. Like a squirrel's life is worth more than a coyote's life.
Well, but here in the Southwest, a lot of states have coyote bounties, so you can
Yeah, to
actually
kill the coyotes.
So yeah,
Yeah,
I just
because they eat the livestock.
I didn't want to put
people.
you in a position to just be that upset and disappointed all
That
at
per-
once.
Um, but they also eat small dogs, coyotes.
Well, they captured a. I mean,
Yeah,
shit, they captured a mountain lion in Summerlin the other day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that happened, guys who
Also,
aren't from here. There was a mountain
Guns
lion.
not a solution to that problem. If ever you thought it was, do
No.
not handle that that way.
Do not shoot.
Meth head maybe. Mountain
to know.
lion no.
Good to
Um,
know.
but so I mean, and to your point, I don't think I have not met the people who hold that position, who hold the staunch, like full on ban everything, who I've been able to have conversations with like that.
Yeah, because even if they portray it on Instagram, if you have a conversation with them, it might be different. Because social media, just spoiler alert, is not real life,
No.
guys.
And also, meaningful conversations don't happen on Twitter. In case anybody was
What?
wondering if they have ever convinced anybody of anything on Twitter, the answer is no.
That's where I have all my conversations in 180 characters or less.
Well, and it's
I just made
it's
up that
hard
number.
for me because I think people think I'm crazy as it is, because all of my arguments so far have been basically against government involvement in whatever the solution is, right? So I'm also biased. I do my best to step outside of that to be open, and that's what I want to be convinced of. But it's gonna have to be an efficacy argument, like a pure efficacy argument, which we're not going to be able to do until something's tried. So maybe we just need to try something and have it all fuck up, and then where are we? It's a double-edged sword.
But I think what the argument could be said, what we have a lot of examples of the government doing things like this that didn't work. What's something they did that did work, that made our country better, that made people better and kinder? So like, if there's proof of that, even like you don't even need to prove me that this is gonna work. Just show me they've done something.
Oh, I have
You know
a
what I
whole
mean?
list.
No, you
Oh,
don't.
you're right. I gave it to the
It's
crickets. Do I have a cricket sound effect?
It's an
I
invisible.
don't know if I have one of those.
It's an invisible list, like in my invisible coffee.
Well, and I mean, it's
Yeah,
I mean,
so if-
yeah. It goes to arguments of corruption and
Yeah.
everything else.
Well, so I mean, I just don't think that saying that I don't want to put all my trust for something so important into the government is, I don't think that's very like, it's not like you're not open to ideas. But I mean, statistics prove, like if someone is standing next to you and they punch you in the face 8 times, right? Like there's pretty good potential they're gonna punch you in the face again. Like I shouldn't have to convince you
Yeah.
of that. You should move the fuck
Yeah.
away.
Well, and I mean, it in my opinion leads to what the ultimate solution is, and it's a generational and societal change that can't be necessarily fixed except through development of us as our society as a whole, and making that change. And it's
Yeah.
something that we're going to have to deal with for a period of time, and then it'll drop off slowly. And then
It's gonna take time,
3
and people want results
generations,
now.
yeah.
I think that's another thing too. is a lot of people who are on one side or the other, who are extremists, want results
Well,
immediately.
I think a lot of people do, and I think that that's probably instigated and perpetuated by the way that politics works. Is because that's what people are
Yeah,
promised.
and
Yeah,
media.
people are promised
Yeah,
solutions now, where
now. Yeah,
it's not
just like
practical or
Biden.
reasonable.
Where's my student loan payoff? I just want to put that out there, Biden. If you're watching, you said it was going to happen, and it's what, been like 2 months, and I still see nothing. Okay, so
No comment.
yes, can we all just get along and love squirrels? Katie, that's a shirt. I'm making it. Can we all just get along and love squirrels? And and shoot the
Well, to be fair, we
coyotes.
also need to control the squirrel population. We don't want to let the world be overrun by squirrels.
That's
You
true. I
never
mean,
know
but
what
if
could
it
happen.
was, I don't know. I Squirrels are probably not as cute as I think. I just like when you go to like places like New York or Boston and other places or Washington D.C., like you'll be walking on just a sidewalk and there's a squirrel and everybody else just keeps walking. I'm like, you guys, like there's a squirrel right there.
There's a
They are
you
not.
probably aren't familiar with Mark Rober, but he's an engineer who does random videos on the internet, and he made a squirrel obstacle course in his backyard as a
Oh,
result of
really?
some
Oh
things,
my
and it's
God.
adorable, and you should watch it. I'll link it to you later. Um, by the way,
Yeah.
the UK banned
We
guns
should.
following the Dunblane massacre in 1997. That's I'm not opening up a wiki. That's gonna be a lot of reading right
Really?
now.
That's interesting,
Um,
Steven. 1997. That's really late. I was thinking like the 1912s or
oh no,
something.
yeah. I didn't realize that you didn't think it was at least semi-recent.
No, I didn't
Yeah,
know that.
I just don't know how
Interesting.
they. I don't know how they
Oh,
did it.
yeah. We're gonna research that though. So,
We need
if
we need to
go
have
ahead.
an off-screen conversation about this framework that you want to build,
It's
and then
happening.
well, I know, but
It's
I mean a more
Oh, oh yeah, we're gonna share it with you guys. If that is that what you're worried
no,
about?
I'm about having a more concrete thing that we can get to over
Oh,
because
I
we're gonna
know.
have to talk about it for hours and hours probably. Yeah, basically everybody has
Wow,
trust
that sounds
issues.
like fun.
Well, and it doesn't help
Yeah.
that the
Well,
history of gun regulation in this country began as a way of ensuring that slaves didn't get guns.
to control
Yeah.
populations.
So I mean it's up and down
Yeah. And
bad faith from government that's causing this stress in the first place, arguably.
yeah. Nah, yeah. And let's talk about since we're nearing the end. So the root cause. Like so we I think we should go back to if we want real solutions, 61%, you is that what the statistics you said? 61% of gun
Gun deaths
violence
are
are
suicides, yeah.
suicides. Yeah, guys, 61% are suicides. So I don't think like mass shootings, that just shows that's not the issue. That's what they chose, and a lot of times those people shoot themselves at the end.
Yeah.
So
Or commit
we
suicide by cop.
clearly, yeah, and we clearly have issues as a country. Even if you, let's say you take all those guns away. We, do you think people are healed
Yeah.
magically?
And even if you have
like
less
like
suicide,
I,
then you have more people with suicidal ideation dealing with their lives every day.
right,
So, I mean, it's not,
yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, this is like and I'm glad you told me that statistic. So every time I have a conversation about gun control, which is never and just on this channel because I don't talk to a lot of people, but if I ever do, I'm gonna be like, like what do you think we're just gonna ban all guns and everybody's gonna be happy hunky dory like La La Land? Ooh, like my picture in the back.
Yeah.
I knew I could relate it somehow.
It's all
I
going
knew
to
it.
be small world candy canes and snakes and some sort
Yeah,
of blue rooster looking thing.
it's so fun. I'm using it in my next class if I can figure out how to keep it on there. It's a Skype thing, in case you guys wanted to know and you're looking for it. It's on Skype.
Oh, that's interesting. That's on
Yeah,
Skype of all places.
it's made for
Yeah, it looks
Skype.
pretty clean though. It looks pretty clean.
I know.
So I mean, and obviously this will get to building the framework or whatever, but we just wanted to have a conversation, not necessarily on a topic, but about talking about a topic.
Using a topic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Using this topic
Yeah,
to
and
kind of break out of that, the framework of throwing memes at people on the internet, and using conversations as a way, open and good faith arguments to get to a point where we can actually solve problems, as
Yeah.
opposed to all
do you
insisting we're
think-
right when not everybody can be right anyway.
yeah. Do you think that you could be a good faith troll?
No.
You don't think so? You don't think you could drop like, hey, did you know that 61% of gun deaths are suicide?
Well, because it's not a troll. That wouldn't be trolling.
Oh, I guess I just thought troll was someone who comments on things a lot.
Trolling is inherently in bad faith.
Oh,
Which, I mean,
so I
you
couldn't call it
could
a troll.
theoretically be in a position where you have yourself convinced that something the principles of accelerationism would be to ramp up gun control to the point of to the nth degree as a way of proving that it's not going to work.
Yeah.
That would be a principle of accelerationism. You could use that thought to try to troll people.
In good faith, but
yeah, that would be
yeah.
self-delusion more than anything.
yeah, I don't think that would be good faith, and I think they would just be doing it for fun anyway. But it is a good point, and it goes back to what I wrote down for step number 3: is imagine extreme examples or extreme scenarios or extreme solutions and work from there. Work from the extremes, because I feel like you're more likely to, when you're talking to someone else, find common ground not only in the root cause but in the extremes. Yeah. So if I say to someone who says we should take all guns away, I say, okay, do we leave them to the police? So is it only our military then that has weapons? So we're now living in a country with the only one with weapons is our military.
And the hardest part, and I'm going to use probably a bad example on a controversial topic here in a second, is the hardest part, and the reason that you have to have the conversations is because all of those biases that people talk about, privilege and everything else, all of these biases are biases that everyone has about every subject, right? So to prove the point, there was one of my favorite people, former Libertarian vice presidential candidate Spike Cohen, made a post about the idea of the vaccine passports, and restricting services. So like if there's a battered woman shelter, for instance, that does not allow entry if you are not vaccinated. This is a strictly hypothetical situation, so you can wipe that off your face, the abject terror. But if they were to restrict access to somebody who was not vaccinated, and that person was in a situation where they were not permitted to become vaccinated because of the control that they were under, that they would be trying to escape, what happens? And it perpetuates a problem. But it's something, and it's probably a small percentage, and we could argue about whether or not that's a good argument or whatever. But the point for me is that I wouldn't in a million years have thought of that, because I'm not
Exactly.
in a bad relationship like that, and I don't imagine myself being.
Don't even fear that.
So I don't know. You don't know. It's like you posted some shit the other day about knowing what you don't know and not knowing what you don't know.
Yeah, there's this much that you know, there's this much that you know you don't know, and there's like this much that you don't know you don't know. Yeah.
And that's why
Yes.
you have to have conversations, and it's why you have to have conversations with people you disagree with, and that's why you have to have calm bar conversations. Like there's
Yeah, well, and conversations with people in different scenarios
Yeah.
in life. Like, there's somebody who's had a family member commit suicide with a weapon, obviously has a different perspective. Someone who has, like, had a family member shot by a weapon, or even a family member who has shot someone. Like, these people are hurting too, you know? So, like, they all have different
Yeah, and
perspectives.
even being that we're from suburban Las Vegas, it could be argued that statistically speaking, we don't need weapons for self defense.
True.
Like that, we just don't need them. So there's
Don't
we
get me
can't
started,
we can't
Stephen.
put ourselves in that position of
In
in that
instant
in that
positions.
that
Yeah.
position of both poverty and being and I mean gentrification and all
And
of
need.
that consolidating of poverty into one area, which means consolidation of crime potentially, and whole other conversations. Do you need to show a vaccination
Yeah.
passport to vote? Yeah, go away. Love you to death, Stephen, but good lord.
Uh, no, I know. I don't get me started on don't get me started on
No.
vaccinations. We didn't even do a vaccination episode,
Yeah, we
did we?
did a
Yeah, we
while
did.
back. Yeah.
Oh,
And we came to the
yeah.
same conclusion that we do in most episodes, which which is it should be personal choice and you have to deal with the
Person.
consequences of your choices and blah 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 and so on and so on.
No, it sounds like where we're at the end here. Like, is that a troll comment?
he's
Yes, that is not made in
he's
good
he's
faith,
coming
Stephen.
hard now. Coming hard now. So it sounds like next week we're going to be talking about CPS, right?
Yeah, we
Or
have
the
a guest.
Department of
We have a
Children and
guest.
Family and Child Protective Services for anybody that doesn't do
Yes.
acronyms or initialisms in this case.
Yes.
Sorry. Um,
And I have stories, and she has stories.
and I mean, I have other people's stories that I'm
And
familiar with.
good.
So
And you're good at asking questions too.
yeah,
So
so it'll be
it will be an interesting. And she actually just went to, because if she had come on this Monday, she's going to court this week
okay.
again. So she'll even have even more information.
Yeah, it's gonna be a tough one. That's next week's gonna be
Yeah.
a hard one because that's
Yeah.
I
It's not a pretty
no,
picture.
and it's one where nobody wins just in general.
Yeah, exactly.
So
In any
so I
scenario.
recommend this week Smile.
Oh, I also have people with autism coming on, family members with children with autism, and we're gonna do an autism
Okay.
episode just to like drop some more breadcrumbs
Is
for
it
you.
it's not going to be a vaccination based episode, right? Like we're not having
No,
okay.
no, no, no. It's living with
Okay, good. Thank
autism.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah,
And we could talk about
I didn't even
and we
think
could
of
talk about
that.
the development of humanity as a whole in that episode and how arguably potentially autistic people are the next development of humanity. Um
I've heard that before.
moving on
Heard that
so we don't
before.
jump the gun too much. So yeah, thanks everybody for hanging out. Appreciate it. Please like, comment, subscribe. Get more people in here. We need more perspectives, obviously, so that if we have issues, we can have people fill in. And yeah, I guess until next week, have meaningful conversations.